Spider Chad, does whatever a dude bro does. Kisses girls just for fun. He's got radioactive cum. Look out, here comes the Spider Chad.
Oh God, he's coming!
Previously on The Amazing Spider-Man 2 BIAM. And now, the season finale of Smallville. Blank is a masterpiece.
There's one thing I didn't tell you guys about the movie so far. Gwen Stacy is actually moving to England, which is the reason why Peter becomes such a masochist.
I'm moving to England.
So Peter goes all Charlie Day on us and decides to make a huge wall.
So I say to myself, I gotta find this guy. The man does not exist, okay? So I decided, oh shit, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper.
A conspiracy wall, I guess, to figure out what happened to his parents' death. And like all normal people, he decides to write down his feelings on a little post-it note and stick it on the wall. We then get some more originality from the movie, and you know what I love about this movie is that they try to create new things from things we've already heard before. So you know the term web slinger, the term wall crawler. That's super boring. We want to create something new. And so they decided, what if we get the term web slinger and wall crawler and we merge them together? Not wall crawler, not web slinger, web crawler.
Show a sudden uptick in public sentiment in favor of the web crawler.
And of course, the genius Mark Webb got a lot of hate.
A line has been crossed that should not have been crossed.
It's very disturbing. It's inappropriate.
Oh, this is huge.
So Harry Osborn gets some really bad neck acne and accidentally drops this little black box onto a table. Now, did you know that what comes next is actually the greatest coincidence of all time? Harry just so happens to drop the box onto a table which allows him to access all of Oscorp's super kinky files. He then finds a video file which includes his father, Norman Osborn, and James Bond, and they were talking about meshing together humans and spiders' DNA to create some incredible Spider-Man. Is that why this movie's called Spider-Man? We then cut to a cokehead. So Player Parker's watching this video on YouTube, and this video has 250,000 views, which is nothing to scoff at. But if you see his subscribers, he only has 2. And this guy's made 108 videos of these. That's really sad. Rip. So Peter's trying to figure out a way to make his web shooters not explode because in the previous encounter with Elektra, they exploded, and so in an effort to make them not explode, he explodes everything. Another thing I love about this movie is that Peter Parker has been bitten by a spider, right? The movie tries to investigate this, like, how do people who have been bitten by spiders act? Like if a Spider-Man was ever real, how would they act in real life? So Peter decides to sleep on the ceiling because, you know, he's just not having it with that ground. Fuck the ground. Eventually, he gets a call from Harry, who very casually tells him, I'm dying. Eventually arriving at Oscorp, Harry shows Peter the footage he found, which very plainly shows that Oscorp was touching spiders without their consent and trying to create human-spider hybrids. Harry reaches the conclusion that Spider-Man is likely a human-spider hybrid and tells him,
I need his blood.
We then get some more of that impeccable dialogue that we all expect from art house cinema.
I don't think you can just set up a van and have him donate. Then maybe you could just sensitively tell me where he is.
Listen, if you ever actually do want to become a screenwriter, analyze the script of The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Don't turn your back on me!
So Peter turns his back on Harry Osborn and finds Gwen, who, like an idiot, was not using ExpressVPN to search the internet and got caught looking for Max Dillon. Did you know that this movie is actually called The Amazing Coincidences?
I got it.
Thank you. You're a gentleman.
You took his picture, so you know him.
Hi.
Gwen Stacy.
Oh my God.
We then catch up with Max Dillon, who is at the Ravencroft Institute and is being analyzed by a film school reject. As if there weren't enough people addicted to BDSM, Dr. Kafka is all about it too and decides to do some really weird, kinky, electric torture on Electro, and they both really enjoy it. After this, Max decides to call himself Electro, revealing that yes, he is Elektra's brother. We then cut to Aunt May discovering Peter's investigation wall, and after a pretty bad moment in this movie, because no one cares about emotional crap, we finally learn the truth about Peter's parents. So, come here, real quick. So Aunt May actually tells Peter that his father was being investigated by the FBI because he stole Oscorp research and he was being branded a traitor. And that's it. It takes, like, 20 seconds to reveal this plot information. And that's perfect, because we don't actually want an interesting plot. Just give me more Spider-Man.
Spider-Man!
Oh, that's the stuff. So Spider-Chad visits Harry Osborn, and this scene showcases the movie's brilliant writing.
I'm already dying. Your blood can't make me die more.
Harry decides to violently threaten the only person who can save his life, and so Spider-Chad leaves. Peter then goes to meet Gwen and decides to literally swing in broad daylight where everyone can see him with his civilian clothes to meet her. Total savage. So Peter doesn't actually know that Gwen is already being interviewed to go to Oxford, and he embarrassingly leaves. And Peter doesn't want Gwen to leave because he wants her to stay so he can keep toying with her emotions, so he decides to take his anger out on a calculator. When he smashes the calculator, he finds all these Chuck E. Cheese tokens in there, and that's when he remembers that his father always took the Roosevelt train to head over to Chuck E. Cheese's for their delicious pizza. Peter then searches for the Roosevelt train and he starts to tear up because he also really wants some Chuck E. Cheeses. We then cut to Black Cat. She tells Harry that in a secret site called Special Projects, Oscorp has been experimenting and keeping the research that Peter Parker's father has experimented on. Harry then gets caught by this random dude, and he decides to frame Harry for the death of Osmosis Jones. Meanwhile, Spider-Chad has arrived at Roosevelt Station, where he discovers a hidden train underneath the tracks that belonged to his father, James Bond. How Peter's father was able to hide a gigantic laboratory underneath the subway, I have no idea. Eventually, Peter looks around and discovers the video his father was recording at the beginning of this magnifique film. While all this is happening, Harry Osborn decides to make his way into the Ravencroft Institute to find Max Dillon, and while he does this, he is able to take out 2 trained guards. Cutting back to the train, we realize that Sony actually decided to reshoot some scenes because they added that Richard Parker actually used his own blood for the research on the spiders, which means that without him, Oscorp can't continue the research. This means that Peter was never an ordinary guy like you and me. He was always the chosen one from the start. Now I know what you're thinking. How the heck did James Bond expect anyone to find his super secret hidden laboratory with his video and research if he hid the only way to gain access to the laboratory, the Chuck E. Cheese tokens, into a calculator in his briefcase that no one would ever destroy? Duh, because he knew Peter would break the calculator. Obviously, you don't have kids, because if you did, you would know that Peter Parker's parents know that in the future, Peter would go and smash the calculator into the wall, revealing all the tokens. Parents just know their kids like that. How would I know this? Excuse me, you're talking to a married man. This is my wife, Judith Laverne Hobbs, and this is my child.
Favor of the web crawler.
Harry then passes Dr. Kafka and his kinky BDSM sidekick in the hallway to find Max Dillon. Harry Osborn then actually reaches Max Dillon and decides to flirt with him.
You want Spider-Man? Spidey!
Turning Max on to the point where he actually shoots out his electricity.
I need you.
Oh, that's the stuff. Gwen leaves a really depressing message on Peter's phone as she leaves for England, and Elektra is able to get Harry Osborn into Oscorp. Elektra then embraces his kinky side and decides to wear his bondage outfit freely so the whole world can see him. It reminds me a lot of a certain someone. So, Harry and Elektra team up in this actually really cool scene. Like, I actually kind of like it. I don't know if that's weird. I think it's cool.
Clear. Welcome back to the bonus round!
So Elektra goes to the grid, and Harry is taken into special projects. We finally reach the room with the spider venom, and Harry tells this random dude to inject the spider venom serum into his arm. So like any normal person, the random dude decides to inject the serum into the arm that Harry is pointing the gun with. You know, human beings have 2 arms, right? So Harry's injected with the venom, and he literally drops down and starts convulsing. The lights start flickering, and it's like we're in a raid. Hey, wicked party, dude. Whoa, that's a little kinky. Whoa, chill out, Harry. Shit. Also, Harry decides to climb into this random green armor because it heals him magically for some reason.
It's Spider-Man.
It's Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. It's Spider-Man. Peter decides to write the words "I love you" on the Brooklyn Bridge and proceeds to kidnap Gwen Stacy. They eventually reconcile. Peter then decides to follow Gwen Stacy to England, and they also, I guess, speak for maybe 2 whole hours because they start the scene in the daytime and then end the scene at nighttime. Right after, Elektra decides to cut the power to the whole city. We then cut to a very important side plot, which is in an airplane control room, in which all these people are scrambling to figure out where the hell these planes have gone. Because if you didn't know, you fucking idiot, radars run on electricity. Peter then magnetizes his web shooters, tells Gwen to stay away multiple times.
Gwen, you're not coming with me. Gwen, it's too dangerous. Gwen,
You need me.
sorry, I love you. Don't hate me.
And rushes over to stop Elektra. We then get the best Spider-Man swinging animation I have ever seen, and that's not a joke. This is legitimately the best. It's the best. It actually has momentum and flow and rhythm. You can feel like weight. We then cut to the obviously more important story. 2 planes are gonna crash!
You're too late, Spidey. I designed this power grid.
This fight is incredibly cool to look at. It's all style and has no substance. Is there a personal motivation behind these characters? Does it feel like Peter will actually truly lose something if he fails? Elektra wants to be like a god to them, but that motivation came out of nowhere, so it really falls flat. We're seeing CGI characters pummel each other, but there's not really enough substance there to back it up. But who cares? Boom boom kaboom! Gwen decides to appear and run into the middle of a war zone because I guess she has beef with Spider-Chad. I guess she's tired of him toying with her so much. And eventually Spider-Chad goes on to defeat Elektra. By the way, if you forgot, the planes? So the planes are racing through the sky. They're really close to crashing. And that's about it. Spider-Man keeps fighting Elektra, but who cares? Give me more planes! Gwen assists Spider-Man in Elektra's defeat. Or, well, by defeat I mean death, because Elektra's pretty much dead. Literally 10 seconds after Spider-Chad defeats Elektra, cracked out Harry Osborn appears. Now that's a Chad if I've ever seen one. Now it's Spider-Chad versus Acne Chad. So Harry Osborn discovers that Spider-Chad is actually Peter Parker because he finds Gwen Stacy in the middle of that war zone, because the only male that Gwen Stacy knows is Peter Parker, supposedly. Eventually, Spider-Chad and Acne Chad have a fight and Gwen is in danger, leading to a scene that builds tension little by little and ends with Gwen falling and dying, with Peter unable to stop her fall in time.
Hey.
Speaking of sex, Gwen and Peter don't fuck in this movie. Peter then decides to live next to Gwen's grave for pretty much an entire year, and Harry is now in prison. He's visited in prison by this guy called Mr. Fierce, and we never know who he is and what his plan is. Screw you, Disney, for taking the amazing Spider-Chad from me. The Spider-Chad movies will live on in my heart, and I hope they will in yours too. Eventually, Aunt May is able to persuade Peter to move on, and Peter decides to look into his closet and find his Spider-Man mask, which I'm assuming has been left out in the open for almost a year for anyone to find. And we cut to the greatest line delivery I have ever heard from Oscar-nominated Paul Giamatti. This movie is incredibly realistic, so like in real life, people run towards danger to spectate it, and this awful mom decides to take her son to the middle of a firefight. Eventually, this kid appears before Alexei and confronts him as Spider-Man. But of course, the real Spider-Man gets the kid the hell out of there before taking on the Rhino himself. Like a total Chad.
Yeah, thanks for stepping up for me. You're the bravest kid I've ever seen.
Imagine how cool it would have been if this kid was Miles Morales. And the movie ends. That was The Amazing Spider-Chad 2, Dubstep Unleashed. Thank God, and Avi Arad for this film. Avi Arad could smack my ass, and I wouldn't mind. I love you, Avi. Thank you so much for this movie, and I can't wait for Venom 2, 3, 4, 5, and Morbius.